and welcome to Hallelujah Monkeys for April 3rd, 2017. I am Dylan Flynn.
I am Trevor Ickrath.
Trevor, second episode. I've been really juiced up about recording this with you.
Yeah.
Like, all week I've been looking forward to it.
I am psyched to be here.
And I think a big reason for that is that we've had such a lovely outpouring and embracement. Embracement? Is that a word?
I think so.
I like it. From the Gorillaz fan community. They've just been so lovely to us.
I have been overwhelmed by how positive the response has been. Not even just how positive it's been, how universally positive it has been. I don't think we heard like a word of criticism.
And these are from people with screen names, so theoretically they could call us anything they want to.
They could say anything. Yeah, it's like Jay-Z said, the internet is the Wild West.
But we've just gotten really lovely, emails from listeners and Twitter and Reddit responses, and it just really makes us feel emboldened. Hopefully, our fan nerdiness makes you feel like you're a part of it, and definitely keep talking to us on social media and writing in. We just love hearing from you guys. I want to recommend, if you are a Gorillaz fan and you feel like you don't have a home, like you have nowhere to go and be a Gorillaz fan, I've really gotten into using Discord over the last week.
I still don't really know what Discord is. I feel like that's something for people who have more friends than I do.
No, it's not. It really isn't, because as far as I can tell, there are really no friend lists on Discord. It's just like a chat room platform.
God, chat rooms have come back? Like in 2017,
yes,
chat rooms are back?
Yes. And I'm currently in, as we record this, I am in 3 different Gorillaz fan chat rooms. And I got to big up one in particular, the one that is connected to the Gorillaz subreddit, the R Gorillaz chat. Really cool community, really loving and sweet people there. And if you're just at this phase where you really want to nerd out about this band and you don't have anybody to do it, go seek that out. I really recommend it.
Cool. I'll definitely try and pop in there. That sounds pretty good.
Awesome. Trev, let's get into the news. It actually was a pretty busy week.
Nice, yeah. More happened than I was expecting to.
It's all good news now.
There's not a lot to say about these, so I'm just going to throw 2 things out here at the top that are happening or will happen.
Go ahead.
But one of them is that T-Mobile is going to be apparently releasing, at some point, a full recording of the Printwork show.
Yes, that is very cool. I'm really looking forward to returning to that once I hear the studio album.
Yes, me too. So that'll be cool. More on that, obviously, when we know more. We don't even really know release or anything like that. And then also, this is just kind of a dumb, funny thing, but somebody found the Spirit House from the Saturday
I saw
Party
that, yeah.
video.
It's in Detroit.
Yeah, it's in Detroit.
Yeah.
And it looks real spooky. Even without, added effects all over it, it looks like a friggin' haunted house in the middle of a neighborhood.
Well, I mean, that is where Insane Clown Posse are from, so maybe they're hinting at a possible future collab. I guess we'll see.
Oh, boy. A man can dream, Trevor.
Gorillaz Eminem collab, when?
Could you imagine seeing, an official piece of Jamie Hewlett artwork of the band in full clown makeup? Okay, let's get into some real news here. So this is awesome, Trevor. Gorillaz have now broken the record for the most successful debut of a VR music video.
Yeah, that's very cool. I don't usually keep up with records and charts and stuff like that, but I don't know, that's cool. Very sick.
Yeah, you might think, well, of course, they're early adopters, but if you look at some of the names that have done VR music videos, it's a pretty impressive list of people. Jack White has done one, Bjork,
The Weeknd, Duran.
So as of today, the Saturnus Bars video is at 5.8 million views. That's for the 360 version, obviously.
Not bad.
But the big number was that it got 3 million in the first 48 hours. So that's what everybody was citing as this big moment for the format. And I guess right now the most viewed VR music video on YouTube is an Avicii song called "Waiting for Love."
Avicii is an EDM artist or something, right?
Here's what I know about Avicii. Do you remember that terrible Mike Posner song, "I Took a Pill in Ibiza"?
Little bit.
So the first lyric of that is, "I took a pill in Ibiza to show Avicii I was cool," which is really depressing because I think Mike Posner is in his late 30s and Avicii is a 19-year-old.
Hello, fellow kids.
Yes, I know. Very sad. But Avicii's video has 18 million views, so obviously Saturn's Brightest got a little ways to go to catch up
We'll
with
get
that.
there. We will get there.
We will get there for sure. I don't think we're going to see another video until like we're well into the post-release of Humans. That's my guess.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we get another one kind of within the next couple months. Maybe over the summer?
Maybe over the summer. And speaking of, what an excellent segue. Thank you for teeing that up, Trevor.
Of course.
Because Gorillaz have now started to announce that this summer they're going to be headlining a bunch of festivals, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, that's basically what they did before the Plastic Beach tour, right? They did like a summer of festivals, and then,
Surprised they're doing that again after, the negative reviews we read on the last podcast. Doesn't seem like that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, here's what we got. We got 3 announced so far. There's the Festival d'été de Quebec. Sorry for my terrible pronunciation. Which is on the Bell Stage in the Plains of Abraham Park in Quebec City. That's on July 15th. That's going to be their first North American date of this leg. Well, unless Trevor, because there is some weird rumblings. Not enough to really put a news story about it, but if you've been looking at Noodle's Instagram profile, which I'm sure you have, Trevor, haven't you?
I'm on
daily?
that shit like 24/7.
Well, they've been posting a lot of pictures of Noodle in and around New York City, and the kind of like every day they put a new one up. And the feeling is perhaps they're teasing that there's going to be some kind of a secret show, in the coming week or so.
I have heard those rumblings, yeah. What kind of venue do you think they would play in New York City to do something like that? I think,
boy, the fact that they're even mentioning it on social media in any way makes me think big.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it was like a no announcement, invitation only thing, then he would play in a little, 200-seater room or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe a club. It seems like this is a real dancey record.
They played Madison Square Garden last phase, right?
Yes, but I don't think Madison Square Garden is in the business of secret shows.
That's a good point. I think that was the only show that Lou Reed showed up for, though. I remember somebody I knew went to that, and apparently it was very cool.
Well, he continued to live in New York until the day he died, I believe. Yeah. So that makes sense. He's just like, all right, I guess I'll leave my apartment.
I am so upset that Lou Reed is dead and thus will not be able to be on this podcast.
I know, what a shame. Maybe we can do some kind of a real stupid, like, Free as a Bird John Lennon thing where we take old archives of
Recut
him.
it? That'd be perfect.
That's July 15th. I think I mentioned that. And then here's the other one. This is kind of weird. Gold Rush, which is Coachella, apparently is starting a new festival in Australia.
Yeah, the Australian Coachella.
That has not officially been announced. But what did happen is that Diplo posted a picture of the schedule of it on his Snapchat.
Fucking Diplo.
And I mean, scoop not only the schedule, but the fact that the festival even exists. Like, that's ballsy.
We learned about Australian Coachella from a Diplo leak?
Yeah, from a Diplo Snapchat post.
Diplo.
I know, they're going to be on that. That's November 4th, so that's the latest of these announced dates. But the reason that I saved this one for last is I think it's very special. I think a certain quotient of Japanese Gorillaz fans are going to be very excited to know that the Fuji Rock Festival 2017 will feature Gorillaz as a headliner. That is in the Naeba Ski Resort in the Minamiu Onuma district. Sorry about the pronunciation of the Niigata prefecture of Japan. And the reason that this is so special is that this is the first show that the first live appearance by this band since August 18th, 2001.
Nice. I was actually going to ask what their international tour history has been. I can't really remember if they've ever... Like, what countries have they played besides, the States, Canada?
In and around Europe, certainly.
Right.
And then, and finally, Trevor, this is kind of exciting. The first of the official remixes have started to trickle out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I feel like I have a personal record that's a little bit maybe spotty with official Gorillaz remixes.
Yeah, I've never really historically been a fan of Gorillaz remixes, or really remixes in general.
I think there are a handful that I like,
Definitely.
but a handful, That
that DFA remix of Dare from Phase 2 is particularly cool.
That one's really cool. Also from Phase 2, I've always been kind of a fan of the Chopper remix of Dirty Harry. That's kind of a cool one.
Yeah, they kind of turned it into more of a rap rock song.
But anyway, okay, so we got 2 so far. We've got a remix of Ascension by Nick Fanciulli.
You are now tuned into the tomb of Jehovah. Play my tunes loud enough to shake the room. What's that hold up? Heard the world is in its soon.
That was premiered on Pete Tong's dance music show on BBC Radio 1, by the way.
Okay.
And did you get a chance to listen to this track, by the way? It's really like sweaty, grimy, dancey music.
Yeah, my first impression that it sounded like 9 Inch Nails trying to cover Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
That's pretty apt.
Thunder. Yeah, it's definitely the more radical reworking of the two.
And I think it's effective. I mean, that's not necessarily the kind of dance music that I listen to casually in my home.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you threw that on a dance floor, it would serve its purpose.
It takes until Vince Staples comes in for me to really warm up to it, but I think it's generally okay.
That guy Nick Fanciulli actually ran a venue called La Familia, which is a really big deal in the EDM world. It's in Ibiza. It's an outdoor 5,000 person venue that's sort of like a make or break ground for EDM producers.
Okay.
And then second, we got a remix of Saturn's Bars by Banks and Ranks.
No me gain up all those glory. The world is mine, the whole life me taking slowly. Happy days me call it, now my bun sad story. Anyway, me
which was premiered on Mr. Jam, also on BBC Radio 1. And I like this track.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty cool.
I think it's an obvious direction to take. Because they kind of really... I mean, you mentioned last week Saturn's Bars having a Phase 1 vibe to you. This definitely drags it kind of kicking and screaming firmly back into the Phase 1 side of things for me.
Yeah, it's almost like I almost get kind of like a Space Monkeys vibe from this one.
Absolutely. In fact, and tell me if you think this is corny, but okay, so Banks and Ranks, I believe they're a couple of white dudes from Montreal.
Okay.
And they call their music ECM, which is Electronic Caribbean Music.
Yeah.
That seems corny to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Part of it is just the name bugs me, because it's like, you're not in or from the Caribbean.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, you're pulling a lot of influence from those dudes, and that's fine. I got no problems with that, but,
That's the Drake dilemma.
It is. That is. Drake really gave that whole country permission.
I like that. I like how frequently we're talking about Drake on this podcast.
Well, he's a looming specter over the whole of pop music.
He dominates the entire discourse right now. But let's talk about this one. I think it's pretty cool. Do they kind of modulate Popcan's vocal or something? Or is this a different take?
Yes. No, I'm pretty sure that... Okay, so there's some autotune on the original version. I wonder if these guys got a non-auto-tuned version of his vocal that they could kind of affect
that
to
might
their
have been
liking.
it, yeah.
But yeah, there's times where the melody of Popcan's verse really departs from the album version, or the single version anyway.
Yeah, pretty cool deviations though. I like it.
Definitely. And when the track kind of slows down when Damon comes in, it's got a really kind of haunting, a really nice synth melody. And
it really highlights some aspects of Damon's part that I think don't come out as much maybe in the original. The use of the hologram bridge is particularly good. It really puts him in the spotlight there.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I recommend that if you're listening to this and you haven't heard these tracks, that you do track them down. It's not super easy to track them down right now because they really exist in this obnoxious ripped from BBC Radio stream form.
Yeah, I had to have you send me them.
Yeah, you can find them. If you Google around, you'll find them. In fact, I think the Gorillaz Twitter account posted links to the streams, so you can find it from there.
Something I would also like to do is I would like to start using our Twitter account to maybe post some links to stuff like that after we release these episodes. So maybe if we talk about, I don't know, a track that a Gorillaz song samples, we can post a link to that song so people can kind of get into those little niches of the band's, I don't know, music making process.
Hey, that's a really good idea, actually. In fact, because not to give anything away, but we will be talking a little bit about some past phase material in this episode.
Yes, I'm stoked to get to that, but like you said.
So I want to also mention in this topic, so today, it's Sunday as we're recording, and Gorillaz tweeted today more remixes dropping this week with the little eyes emoji. The eyes, you know which one I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
I saw that.
And that's cool. So that means this week we're going to get some more. I think what we're probably definitely going to see is there's a remix of Andromeda by an artist named Zhu.
Okay,
ZHU.
cool.
I'm not saying Jew.
I'm down for that.
He played that live, so I think we're probably going to hear that
Nice.
this week. But then, this is crazier, Trevor. This is crazier. So somebody responded to that tweet, just a random fan, and said, in all caps, instead of remixes, drop more songs.
Okay.
And, I mean, I'm sure, you imagine at Gorillaz must get messages akin to this 5,000 times a day. But instead, they did respond directly to them and said, very casually, no caps. Yeah, that too this week.
Nice.
So,
do we know who's running that account?
I don't know. Who was the Zombie Flesh Eaters guy from back in the day who used to do all their web stuff?
Yeah, well, maybe it's him or it's probably their writer slash drummer, maybe. What's it, Cass or something?
Cass Brown.
Yes.
Or I guess it could be Remy Kabaka also.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, really funny way to announce that potentially we're going to hear something new this week. I imagine maybe we'll hear Submission, the Danny Brown track. I
That
don't know
could be
what
cool.
we'll hear.
I know a clip of that one leaked pretty early on,
It
like
did.
before even the
It
singles
did.
came out.
More on that. Well, maybe we'll have some new Gorillaz music to talk about next week. That'd
Yeah.
be cool.
Hope so.
Trevor, do you want to get into the roundtable?
Yes, let's do it.
That music cue should give you, and also the title of this episode, should give you all the clues you need to know that this week's topic is that we're going to review the 2001 self-titled Gorillaz debut album.
Yeah, and I've been stoked to get to this. I mean, I think it's pretty cool that we have just enough time in between when we started the podcast and when the new album comes out to kind of cover each LP leading up to it. I think we might skip the fall and come back to that at a later date, but I'm really looking forward to sitting down with you and talking about the self-titled, Demon Days,
me
and
too.
Plastic Beach.
Me too, and it's going to be such a cool way to kind of, get the hype train moving into
Yes,
overdrive,
totally. Mm-hmm.
leading into the release of Humans. Well, I think what we're going to do, Trevor, is go track by track with this.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
But before we do, let's try to have like a broader conversation about the record, what it means to us, and what we think about it.
Sure. I mean, this was your first encounter with the band, right?
It was. Yeah, Clint Eastwood made me buy this album. Hearing that song on MTV2 and seeing that video on MTV2 made me buy that album the day that it came out. I wrote down 3 words that are like the 3 words that describe this record to me.
Okay.
And they also describe it in contrast to the other 2 Gorillaz records for me.
Interesting.
I'll say them, and then you tell me if you concur, okay?
All right, let me hear them.
The first word is fun. The second word is consistent. And the third word is a hyphenate, so maybe it's a little bit cheating. But
All
the
right.
third word is in character.
I'll give you that.
That to me that sums up my feelings of this record, comparing it to Demon Days or Plastic Beach.
All right, I'll give you 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. Which one are you knocking down there?
I'm gonna knock down consistent because I think this is kind of the broadest Gorillaz album, the one where Damon decides to try as much as he can, and some of it works, some of it doesn't quite work, but it all makes for a very eclectic experience, I think.
I don't think I can disagree with that. I think maybe, yeah. The thing is, consistent comes from me because there's really no skips on this record for me. When I listen to this record, I usually listen to it in a straight shot all the way through, and I don't find myself going like, oh, I want this one to end so that I can get to this one. I just kind of let it wash over me.
That's fair.
But how about you? What do you think about, where does self-titled fit into the canon of Gorillaz records for you?
I'd actually like to just keep talking about those words you threw out because I think they're some great prompts for what I want to talk about this record.
Yeah.
So what was that first one you said?
So the first one I said was fun.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. This is like the breeziest Gorillaz record. There's so much going on here that just kind of feels off the cut and like in the spur of the moment. Damon thinking like, I want to do this, and then he does it, puts it on record, boom.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a sunshine and a bubblegum element to this record that maybe isn't quite as present on the future ones too.
Totally, it is. It really has that kind of pre 9/11 sense of optimism.
It sure does, man. Yeah, like
I know
way
that's
that
the second
all-
time I've brought up 9/11 on this podcast, but I really do think this record kind of captures that brief moment in 2000 where we were like, it's a new millennium, anything is possible, this is going to be great.
Right, absolutely. You're totally right, and you know, some of the late '90s music I feel like is hurt from being so earnest and optimistic in that way. In a way that I don't think that this Gorillaz album is. I think that this Gorillaz album has actually aged pretty well, with a few exceptions that we'll kind of get into.
All right, cool. I'm interested in hearing what you
But
think
the
about
other
this.
word that I brought up was in character.
Right, and what that brought to my mind is the use of samples on this album. Because something that I've always found really, something that has always been really immersive to me about this record is I can never be sure what's being played organically and what's a sample that Damon or Dan the Automator or anyone else kind of dug up.
Yes, and based on this really, really great interview with Jason Cox and Tom Gerling from way back in the day after the release of this album that I just recently revisited, it really sounded like, based on what they were saying, that one of Dan's main roles, Dan the Automator's main roles in this record as a producer, was to bring a layer of samples onto this record. It sounds like actually quite a bit of the tracking for this album was finished before Dan even came on.
Interesting.
And if I had to extrapolate from some of the things they say in that record, it almost sounds like they might have even tracked a lot of live drum tracks that were later just thrown in the garbage in exchange for some Dan the Automator sample work. But that's a really fascinating interview. I don't know how to get that interview to you guys, our listeners. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll post it on our Twitter.
Cool, yeah, I'd be
if I
interested in
can.
reading that too. Something that I just really love about the use of samples here is it feels like Damon and Dan sitting down and thinking, okay, what kind of music would these characters we've come up with play?
Yes,
and then
yes.
them reaching through like all of musical history and going like, oh, Murdoch might have written this bass line, let's throw it in there.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Like, there's this feeling that everybody is keeping up the illusion in this record musically that really doesn't follow it to the next two albums as much. I would even say that Damon on this record employs a vocal register that isn't necessarily his own. Like, he's singing very consciously in a way that's kind of like, I'm singing as this character, and this is the way that this character sings.
He creates the 2D voice.
I really like this album. I think that in some ways it sounds a bit more dated than the other two, but
There's something about it that makes it feel like the purest Gorillaz record.
I agree with you on that. Let's get into the tracks.
Yes, I'm excited for this.
Okay, let's talk about. I listened to the album today. Did you also listen?
Yeah,
today?
I listened to it like an hour ago. Sat down, kind of got my thoughts in order.
Yes, I had a cup of tea.
And I feel like every time I listen to this record, I find new things to appreciate about it, and different things stick out to me than last time.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the album opener, Rehash.
Rehash. What do you think of that title, first of all? Because it's an interesting kind of thing to call your first track on your first album.
Yeah, so I feel like the lyrics of the song are almost circling this idea that they never quite put any punctuation marks on, that like maybe the song is a little bit of a commentary on disposable pop music.
Yeah, industry kind of stuff.
And Rehash kind of plays into that read of it, I think. Sort of corporate commercial music. Obviously, back on the Phase 1, when Jamie and Damon were talking about this stuff, when they occasionally did, back in Phase 1, they were always really quick to bring up, like, American Idol and the kind of garbage cookie cutter pop music of the era, and that this music was very much in reaction to that music. I don't know if that concept really comes through on the album, but in this song it kind of does. This
Definitely,
is a really fun, sunny, track. I like it does set the tone for the album well, I think.
My favorite thing about this one is the arrangements. There is so much cool, like subtly weird stuff going on about in this track.
Yeah. I like the little I don't know what instrument that is. That little dun 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 dun. That little breakdown that sounds kind of like maybe a string instrument, maybe an Eastern string instrument.
I hear like a
I'm not sure
harpsichord.
what
That part. I hear like a sitar.
that could be a sitar. Yeah.
And then there's like a harpsichord that comes in over that like ba 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 kind of interlude. That's one of my favorite parts of this song.
I love that. I love
So
that
good.
interlude too. That's like almost Hocketing levels of vocal layering. That's really fun.
It's very Beatles-esque as well.
It is,
Yeah.
and Miho Hattori just seamlessly blends into the vocal track on this.
Totally. It was interesting that they were almost kind of like trying to cast, like you said, Damon created the 2D voice, and I think Miho Hattori was a very deliberate kind of choice as a collaborator when you have a character like Noodle in the band.
Yeah, there was like this very kind of like, let's associate the visuals with the sounds and let people see this character in their head.
Mm-hmm.
I really definitely see the band in my head when I hear this song.
Definitely. More so than on the other records, probably.
Yeah, great track, good opener.
Before we move on, what do you think here? I'm going to try not to ask this question about every song. What do you think here is sampled? What do you think is actually being played? Because I think on this song, it is very difficult to tell.
So when I was listening today, I did go to whosampled.com just to see what people have picked out from these mixes as being samples.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not encyclopedic or completist or anything like that.
Yeah, of course
so
not.
it didn't have anything listed for rehash. But I think that there's probably more live instrumentation and live synth work on this than on some of the other tracks on the record.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that those weird harpsichord and sitar interludes were live.
Nice.
That seems.
I could definitely picture Damon sitting down in the studio with something like that.
But I don't know. Nothing in this one really jumps out to me as obvious sample.
I'm
I don't
pretty
know.
sure though that the opening drum loop, and I guess the drums that play throughout the entire song, is a preset or like the same drum loop that Bare Naked Ladies used in Pinch Me.
Oh my god!
Listen to them back to back. I'm positive it's the same exact sound.
Oh, we're definitely posting a link to that Bare Naked Ladies song on our Twitter.
Totally.
That's awesome. I'm definitely gonna do that as soon as we're done recording. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, you want to go to 5/4? This is a pretty cool one.
5/4. I think this song was almost a single.
Really? Oh yes,
yeah,
I
it
do
was-
remember that. They even they almost tried to make a video about it. Oh God, that was the first time we saw Murdoch's dick. We did see Murdoch's dick all the way back in Phase 1.
You're right.
I can't
you're
believe
right.
I forgot about that last time.
Oh boy. You know what? Maybe we should just shut this whole thing down. Maybe
I'm
we should
ashamed.
just ghost each other and never speak again.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have made a good single. I'll say that.
Definitely
It
not,
would have been the follow-up to Clint Eastwood if it had been a single. But whoever's decision it was to shift gears and go to 192000, maybe that was Parlophone. That was a good choice
Very
in my
good
opinion.
choice. Yeah.
I do like this song. I think it's really catchy. I think it feels like the most direct continuation of some of the 90s Blur stuff to me on this record.
Yeah, I mean, rehash into this one. It's interesting that they chose to preload the record with these kind of very guitar-driven tracks because that's not really what I
Yeah.
associate with the Gorillaz sound anymore.
You know what my favorite part of the song is actually? It's when the beat and the guitars drop out and you hear the little organ isolated.
Yes, that weird-ass little synth is so cool.
It's almost like you forget that it's back there the whole time, but then after that moment you hear it for the rest of the song.
It's really
you
neat.
know?
Yeah.
Let's take this track as an opportunity to talk about Kid Koala.
Okay.
Because I feel like on this record, more so maybe even than Miho Hattori, Kid Koala is a member of this band.
He tears shit up on every track he's on.
He is a turntablist.
He is
but I want to
really
talk
good.
about that's one of the elements of this album that I feel like has dated slightly. I don't think that you would hear an alternative or a pop group putting this much turntablism up front in the mix like this as you hear on this record. I still like that stuff, but it sounds more 2001-ish to me than the rest of the record does.
I think Linkin Park just drove that sound into the ground.
Well, I mean, Fred Durst and company tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely think that Kid Koala works better on a Gorillaz track than Turntables worked on a Linkin Park or a Limp Bizkit track. I will
Definitely.
say that.
He had a pretty good run around that time, Kid Koala. You know, he had this. He was on Deltron. He was on those Handsome Boy Modeling School records, which were really
Yeah,
quite good.
those are cool records
Yeah,
too.
definitely
And
worth
he's still
looking at.
actually very active. We follow him on our Twitter, and he's still quite active in the music world. So.
Nice. Kid Koala, come on the show.
And here's the one part of the song that I'm not crazy about. It's the come on after the She Made Me Kill Myself sort of breakdown when it kind of gets a little industrial and starts stomping towards the end of the track.
Yeah, Damon does like a couple like rock star moves on this album, and I think they tend to fall flat.
Yeah, that's not my favorite part of the song. I do like the song though.
Yeah.
It's very catchy. Tomorrow Comes Today.
This is kind of like the first Gorillaz song ever, right?
Yeah, this was the one that I guess. How did it work? If you were like on a Blur fan, on the official Blur fan list, I guess back in 2000, maybe in the end of 2000, even you got a little mailer that pointed you towards a website that had the Tomorrow Comes Today video on it. I
Really,
believe
that's cool.
how it
I've never
worked.
heard of that.
I think that's how it worked. I might be mixing up a few details, but it was something like that.
Well, this song actually started life as a Blur demo.
It did. I Got the Law,
Yep.
which was from the 13
Yes.
era.
I can't remember how it was
So that's
originally
a
released.
pretty long time
Yeah.
for that to percolate. That's like a 5-year gap, I think.
No,
between...
no. 13 was like 1999.
Oh, is that true?
I think
okay.
so.
Well, I'm way off. but
97.
anyway, that demo's interesting. That demo's really interesting. I actually think that Tomorrow Comes Today, at least in that first verse, really feels kind of directly talking about Damon's relationship with paparazzi and celebrity to me in a way that is sort of out of character for this album. But, you know, we have to remember that in 2001, that dude had really been through the ringer as like a tabloid guy.
Definitely.
You
I
know?
mean, the entire Blur versus Oasis thing in the 90s.
Yeah, and there's sort of I don't know, there's something about like Everybody's Here With Me, We Got No Camera to See. There's just something about it feels like a moment of quiet in the middle of a media circus to me.
I could definitely agree with that.
I like the song a lot, actually. I think it's really beautiful.
I've never really fallen in love with it to the point that a lot of other Gorillaz fans, I think, have.
Right.
I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't quite take it there for me. I do really like the whistling at the end. That's very Ennio Morricone. Or, sorry if I'm butchering that guy's last name.
Yes, there's that whistle solo, and then it's teed up by the first really big feature for the melodica on the album.
Yes.
This is a melodica pop record, if ever there was one. I almost wish, like, if there was a version of this song with live track drums instead of the sampled drums, I would have loved to hear that because
Definitely.
those really heavy boom bap drums kind of detract from a mood that the song almost sets and doesn't quite get there for me.
I mean, I've actually always found that sample to be pretty integral to the way the song moves.
I don't want that version in lieu of the version we got. I want that version in addition to the version we got, just so I would have like kind of two takes on it.
It definitely would be interesting to hear. So, you know, that's one reason why I'm excited that apparently every song on the new album has an alternate take on the
Very
deluxe edition. I could listen to Gorillaz outtakes and stuff that hit the cutting room floor for like hours probably.
Let's talk about New Genius.
I really like this one. This one, I think, kind of goes for a similar mood to Tomorrow Comes Today, at least a similar sound, and I've always found it to be a little bit the stronger of the two.
Okay, I'm going to say right now, this is one of my 3 favorite songs on this album.
Nice. I like that. That's cool.
I feel like this song is a little bit under-discussed and a little bit underrated in the Gorillaz fan community.
It's interesting you say that because this is the one song from the album that they never have played live.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's
That's
so weird.
crazy to
Yeah.
me. Like, it's nuts to me that they would play, I don't know, Starshine live and not ever play New Genius.
I
Like,
think
that's crazy.
they also might not have played Double Bass I'm not sure if they played that live, but
I don't know if their live band in Phase 1 was hardy enough to pull off double bass. We'll talk about that when we
Okay.
get to that song.
but yeah, I'm so surprised they never played this one live because it's one of Damon's strongest vocal performances on the record. I think it's got one of
Absolutely.
the best hooks.
Oh, I love that hook, and I love the lyrics in that chorus.
Yeah, totally.
Very
soulful.
The river ain't deep. That's such a good chorus, and the other thing that was really striking me about the song today that it hadn't until I listened to it today is that this song actually really closely follows 12-bar blues structure.
Interesting.
Even though obviously the groove of it does not have a blues feel at all, but the way that it sort of drones on the first chord and waits until that third set. Well, anyway, this is all music nerd stuff. But if you listen to the structure of the song, it's actually quite bluesy, which is interesting because the scratch interlude, the Kid Koala scratch interlude, is a Bo Diddley sample.
I know, yeah, that's pretty cool. Kid Koala's performance on this track, by the way, is incredible. Maybe the best on the
Maybe
album.
my favorite. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
favorite Kid Koala appearance on this record. Like, that's one moment on this record where I'm not like, does this still fit?
Yeah, he
in this
really goes
sound?
for it at the end.
I've always also kind of gotten a little bit of a Bond theme vibe from those backup chorus vocals.
I feel that too, yeah.
I like that song a lot.
Mm-hmm.
New Genius.
And of course, this is the calm before the Clint Eastwood storm. So I guess
Oh
let's
my
get
god.
into the big single from this record. And I think, is it still the biggest Gorillaz single, or did Feel Good Inc. eventually surpass it?
Feel Good Inc. surpassed it commercially.
Okay.
If you look on Spotify, it always anchors number 2 as the most played Gorillaz song after Feel Good Inc.
Gotcha. What's there even left to say about this one at this point, though?
That's what I was thinking. Like, what could we possibly say about Clint Eastwood? I played this song into the fucking ground when I
Yeah.
was a kid, man.
What's your favorite part of this song?
It's got to be the Dell verses, man. The hook is one of the best hooks Damon Albarn, I believe, has ever or will ever write. But those Dell verses, like, the note that I took is, this is the Dell verse that pulled a lot of white boys out of rap music abstinence. Like, this was the moment where a lot of kids who used to say, I like everything except rap and country, dumped rap from that list of things they don't like.
I mean, you're not wrong, probably.
That's such a good verse, though. It's so colorful. It's so fun. It's athletic. I mean, even today as I was listening to it, trying to listen to it with fresh ears, which is not an easy thing to do, I was just like, God, that's such a good verse.
It's just an iconic performance.
Absolutely.
My favorite part, though, is at 1 minute and 16 seconds into the song, you can hear the sound of what is clearly Damon doing a line in the studio right before he records the second chorus. Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
It is
I've had that
distinct.
pointed out to me before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, probably my favorite Damon vocal performance on record. I really like the way he sings this one, what he does with his
It's also a
voice.
vocal performance I don't think he's ever perfectly recaptured in a live setting.
Totally, yeah. Like the woohoos from song 2. It was just a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing.
Yeah, you got the perfect version on the record, and
Yep.
that's the last you're going to hear of it. I also think it might be my favorite melodica moment on the record.
Totally, yeah. Again, that Ennio Morricone kind of influence is all over this one.
That might be the most prominent melodica moment in the history of pop music.
Yeah.
Even.
Definitely. Like the only time you will hear a melodica on the radio.
Also, on that amazing Jason Cox interview, they talk about trying to convince David to play less melodica on the record.
He really brought out some annoying stuff for this one. I mean, we'll talk about the recorder part on Rock the House, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we sure will.
I really do like that there is an extended 2-minute instrumental outro for this song. What do you think about that? Because it strikes me as such a deliberate
so
choice.
long. It is so long.
Yeah,
I don't know what to make of it even still. Like, have you ever heard the instrumental version? Because the instrumental version does not have a fade.
Right. That's the only one that I think finishes, gets to the actual conclusion, right? It's a little over 6 minutes, probably.
Little over 6 minutes, and it's really interesting too. There's a little bit of organ and synth stuff that goes on at the end of that track that you don't hear on the album version.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that super droning ending. Obviously the single version doesn't include that much of an outro.
It cuts it pretty fast. One of my favorite things about this song, I'm pretty sure, is that it's really just an omnichord preset. Damon has this omnichord, right? It's this weird little synth instrument. I'm pretty sure that when you just press a button on it, it'll go like bam, 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 and like. So he just turned it on, and he's like, "I'll make a song out of this," and it's like the biggest song of his entire career.
I know, so crazy. One of the most iconic moments
Yeah.
in his now verging on 25-year career as a songwriter. What is the end of side 1 in the vinyl version of this record? Do you know?
That's a good question.
Let's look that up.
Yeah.
Because I actually think that this album is pretty well sequenced.
It's really I've always seen this record as having 3 distinct thirds.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think one of those thirds is a little bit lopsided. But that's kind of how I've read it too. So real quick, okay, so then let's talk about the way that things are divided up on the vinyl. So on the vinyl, Clint Eastwood is the first song of the second side of the first disc,
That makes sense to me.
which I think actually is really good. So that means side 1 of your first disc has a really clear build into Clint Eastwood. And the reason I wanted to look this up, we'll talk about the track listing a little bit more the sequencing a little bit more as we get through the album, is that this Clint Eastwood moment, definitely feels like a gear shift on the record to me. I don't know where you see it in your theory of how this album is sequenced.
Well, I think the album can be broken up into thirds, which would make Clint Eastwood kind of the end of the first third, and I think
Sure.
the extended instrumental outro really makes for a good kind of ending to this first leg of the record.
I agree.
And
I
then
agree
Man
with you.
Research, that like the intro of that one has always struck me as kind of like okay, now we're going to leg 2. So I guess that's where I
here's
would.
where we are now.
That's where I
Let's
would.
talk about Man
put
Research.
the
Let's talk about Man
gear
Research.
shift.
This is a breakfast club.
This is the subject of a lawsuit, this song.
Really?
Yeah, that Raymond Scott sample, the Hall of the Mountain Queen sample. I don't know if you know much about Raymond Scott, but he's a fascinating dude.
I have heard after the sample was pointed out to me like forever ago. Actually, I sat down and listened to the big long compilation of his work that it's from originally. He's done some pretty cool stuff.
Manhattan Research Incorporated,
Yeah.
which this song gets its name from.
That's
but the sample was not cleared, and so his estate sued successfully for some money on this one.
Damon. It's a cool little track, by the way. The song it samples, "Hall of the Mountain Queen."
It's a really interesting sample, and
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it really underpins the track. That dude Raymond Scott. Not to get too much into him, he died penniless. So any extra dollars his music can make, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I like this song.
me too. I think this is one of the more underrated tracks on the album. I think, and in their catalog
I agree.
in general. I've always been a really big fan of it.
I think the vocal performance is really good in this song. Also, I don't know what he's singing. I do not know what he's singing in the song at all.
I've always seen, whenever I've looked up the lyrics, apparently he's singing in the chorus somewhere, "You're the hero." I've never heard that ever.
Where would that even happen?
I have no
Chorus?
idea.
Yeah, I don't know. This is like obviously sort of intentionally obfuscated Damon vocals.
Yeah.
Very mush-mouthy.
I really wish they had opened up the live shows during Phase 1 with this one. I can see it so clearly in my head, right? Like the stage lighting up, the band starting.
This is the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, and Damon going like, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Damon Albarn. These are the Gorillaz, and this is a Breakfast Club."
That would have been
It would have
dope.
been so good.
Yeah, it would have been a good pump up. I mean, M1A1 also obviously did its job.
Yeah, we'll talk
on
about
some of those
M1A1.
Dates. Great synth noises on this song also, like sort of the atonal sound effects work on Man Research is really fun.
You want to move on to punk?
Yeah, let's talk about punk.
This one's kind of cool. Neat little song.
It's slight.
Yeah, I think
That's
there's
what
a
I read.
Murdoch quote from Phase 1 where he says he thinks like every album should have like one track where it's just like a short little loud punk song to kind of, fill that role in the record. But I'm pretty sure
Right.
that's actually a Damon. Like, that's one of Damon's opinions.
That's what I
because
was gonna say.
if you go
'cause
through
almost every
Blur's-
Blur record,
Yeah, if you
has
go through
one
Blur's
of these songs on
discography,
it.
every, album has one song like this, like Bank Holiday.
Some of them are fucking great. I love Moving On. I think Moving On is one of the most underrated Blur tracks.
I really like Globalone from The Great Escape.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really well produced song, Punk. I feel it's sort of. You've seen Bananas, the documentary?
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about this part of Bananas because it's maybe the best part of the movie.
You basically get to see him build this track in the studio from the ground up.
Yeah, from start to finish, it's inspiring.
It's really cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part of the whole thing is when he's like, the second verse needs something, and he just starts looking for noises.
Yes.
First sort of like improvising vocally, and then like going to his wall of synthesizers and samplers and trying to find that little missing element.
I think we'll probably do an entire Bananas episode sometime down the line. I would like to at least.
I'd like to too. That's a cool documentary
Yeah.
for sure. It's all on YouTube if you want to go watch it.
Yeah.
You can. Yeah, not a bad song. Not an album highlight for me,
Yeah, fun little track.
but pretty expertly put together.
Yeah,
I think.
meticulous, surprisingly so. Yeah, what do you think of
Sound
sound
check.
Gravity on me, never let me down, gently.
Sound check. Gravity was my favorite song on this album when I was 13.
That surprises me. It's my least favorite song on the album, probably.
It has not aged super well for me.
Yeah, I really do like Damon's vocals, and I like the acoustic guitar. I think he recorded those up on a roof in Jamaica, and it also kind of captures some of the night sounds. So there's like a cool field recording quality.
Oh,
to
I
it.
love, what's his name, Junior, the bassist who worked on this record.
Yes.
Junior, I can't remember his last name.
Junior Dan. Isn't it Junior Dan? Is it not Junior Dan?
I love that bass line though.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
bass line is
this
beautiful.
record is. Gorillaz have a history of good bass lines, and it really just clicked for me, like on the last time I listened to this record, that of course they would, because this is a band where the bass player is a megalomaniac. So that strikes me as so in character that, like, Clint Eastwood, Feel Good Inc., these are, like, their biggest songs are all bass line driven.
That's totally true.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought about that before, but yeah, Murdoch totally sees himself as the leader of
Yeah,
this band.
oh my god.
That makes so much sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. I guess here's my only problem with this song is that to me it feels in retrospect a lot like one half of a song that is repeated twice.
Definitely. I cannot believe it's almost 5 minutes long.
It's so long.
Yeah.
It really should have just been that first half and then done. One and done, it would have been fine.
If it was 3 minutes long, I would like it a lot better. What's that voice saying? What's that voice saying during the scratching part?
I couldn't find the sample.
Okay. What do you hear though?
But well, I've always thought it was like when I was a kid. I thought it was "Don't Want to Fuck with Biggie."
Interesting. Because I have in my notes, "Don't want to fuck with me."
But there's some dumb stuff going on Rap Genius about it that I don't totally agree with.
What do they say?
They think that it's I don't know, love is breaking.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Let's go on to double bass.
I think that this is still the definitive instrumental track that this band has released.
It's really cool.
The name, it's Junior Dan, by the way.
Junior Dan
is the name of the
Yeah.
bassist.
Cool.
The reason that this song is called Double Bass is that this is Junior Dan and I think Damon playing a bass track simultaneously with each other.
Sick. That's pretty cool.
And there's times when like the notes are folding over each other in this really fucked up cool way where like they're directly like creating dissonance.
I've always
those two
thought this
bass
song
tracks.
kind of sounds like a bunch of demons playing elevator music. Like this is what you hear when you're descending into hell, but you're kind of chill about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the best description I've ever heard of the song. There's also great noises on this song. It has a great mood. I also think that the moment that Damon says, all of which makes me anxious, sometimes unbearably so, is the only out-of-character Damon Albarn vocal moment on this record.
What do you mean? That's interesting that you
Because
say that.
he's speaking in a register that is too low for 2D at that time.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Can you picture 2D the character in the first album saying that? I just can't. I cannot.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I think canonically it is actually Damon talking. I think I remember that from Rise of the Ogre.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't read Rise of the Ogre in many years, so I don't know.
Me neither, but that's one of the things I remember from it. I'm really tickled that you say that. Cool.
I love, and I also don't think, I mean, we mentioned this earlier, but if they tried to pull this out on the Phase 1 dates, like, I don't think that their live band was there for a track like this.
Sick, though.
It would have been cool, I agree.
Yeah, all right, rock the house. Rock the house. I think of this as Dan the Automator's like moment to shine on this album. It's kind of like an out of character Deltron 3030 song.
Except it's a little bit too like it has a little bit too much of a Gorillaz vibe to fit on Deltron.
I definitely agree with that.
I was talking about the recorder.
Yeah, I know people kind of have some gripes that Damon doesn't really have any vocals on this track, but I think his presence on that shitty little recorder more than makes up for it.
Oh, I totally agree.
That is him playing, right? It's not a sample?
Yeah, that's live. You can even hear the isolated track of it on the old Kong website.
It's very cool.
Which is dope.
Yeah.
I think this is a good choice for a third single, and I also think that this song is really important because it makes Dell's presence on Clint Eastwood not feel like tossed off or accidental.
Right.
It makes Dell feel like he's really a part of this record and a part of this project.
And he's always been more of kind of more of an in-universe character than any of their other collaborators have really been.
Except maybe Mos Def as Sun, Moon, and Stars or whatever his name was.
Right. We'll talk about that when we get to Plastic Beach because I'm still not really sure what was going on with that one.
Yeah, the sample on this track, by the way, is a song called Modesty Blaze by John Dankworth.
Cool.
I mean, obviously, the sample is kind of everything on this track.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't know. It does kind of stick out on the record a little bit. Like, it definitely sounds different than anything else on the record.
I thought it was a really interesting choice for them to issue a single without any, 2D vocals on it.
192000.
This one's pretty cool, too. Some really interesting arrangements on this one.
Okay, I'm going to say it. Top 3. This is a top 3 song from the first record for me.
I don't know if it makes it there for me. If it does, it's probably number 3. Number 3? I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I think my number 3
almost feels... I don't know. It just puts me in such a good mood. And something about this feels like the thesis statement of this first record. Like, this is the most unabashedly... let's have a good time track on this record.
Yeah, I can get behind that sentiment for sure. Doesn't surprise me it was a single.
Oh yeah, definitely the right choice.
I can't believe Damon had this on the album and he's looking at tracks for single. He's like, I think I'll go with 5/4.
5/4. That seems like the obvious choice. Maybe it was just because it was so blurrish that they thought that would be the smart move.
Possibly, yeah.
Miho Hattori and Tina Weymouth are on this song.
Yeah, I always forget that Gorillaz have collaborated with a member of the Talking Heads.
I know, right? Mrs. Tom Tom Club herself.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, it's not surprising.
Which of those women do you think is saying, okay, bring it down, yeah, we gonna break out?
I have been waiting all week to talk about, okay, bring it down now. We're coming back out.
Who's saying that? Is that Tina Weymouth? Because I really want it to be.
Or is it a sample?
I don't know if it is. I don't think it is.
I don't know. For years, I thought it was Damon doing some kind of jokey kind of hick accent.
Right. Right.
And that is actually still my first guess. Know who it would be cool if it was? Jamie.
Oh, that'd be crazy. Has
he
officially ever sonically made an appearance on a Gorillaz track?
Yes, he played a toy ray gun on Hong Kong-a-Ton.
Oh my God, you're right, he did. Yep.
Yeah,
oh,
that is
so
a deep piece of Gorillaz trivia.
I feel like you've really earned your wages this week between that and the elevator ride down into hell analogy. All
right, I'll probably just phone in the rest of the show then. You want to talk about Latin Simone?
Yeah.
I actually don't know how to pronounce the name of this one, so you say.
¿Qué pasa contigo?
No, you can't just say that. You have to.
Well, Latin Simone. I'm pretty sure it's Simone. I think Abraham Ferrer's vocals are really beautiful, but I don't know if he fits on this record at all.
That's probably what I would say too. Yeah.
Like, Del feels so integrated in a way that Abraham really doesn't. And I feel like if this song had been on Phase 2 or Phase 3, like, you wouldn't have even thought about it because the band becomes so collaborator-focused.
Yeah, and it also is it brings an older sound to this record that I think kind of clashes with the kind of, like, starry-eyed new millennium kind of vibe that the rest of it gives off.
And I also think that the instrumental track is just a little bit boring.
Interesting, because I think, barring Clint Eastwood, this is the coolest instrumental track in Phase 1.
Oh boy, we're head to head on this. I don't know.
It's
I like
the piano and
I like the shaker.
horns.
I like the shaker.
The whole thing, and the fact that they it was really, really cool to hear them perform this one live as an encore with those Demon Days sets they did.
Right.
This they did for, I think the encore was Hong Kong, and then this one with live footage of Ferrer kind of doing the
because he had
original
just
vocal
recently
take.
passed, right?
He just recently passed away.
Yeah.
But it really, as you said, fits in well with the Demon Days tone, I think.
It's the most Demon Days track on the record for sure.
Totally.
What do you think about the English version of this song versus the album version of this song?
It's one of my favorite Phase 1 songs, the English one.
You
I
think
Damon
would you
kills it
swap
on the
them?
vocal.
Would you swap them if you could?
My ideal one would be a duet.
Oh, that's a good idea. Take like
Because if you even look if you look at the lyrics, Damon's lyrics are kind of almost an answer to this one, or vice versa. I can't really
What's the
remember.
matter with me versus what's the matter with you? Kind of.
Yep, would have been a great kind of duet on
Yeah,
the
maybe
album.
they just didn't do their due diligence and find a way to make Damon's approach and Abraham's work together. That would have been better. I agree.
I mean, seriously, when I was like 16, I probably threw that together in GarageBand, and it worked really well.
Wow, shots fired! Shots fired
Yeah.
at the Gorillaz production team.
Hey, Damon, get me to produce the next Gorillaz record. So, is this the? We're now firmly into like the third act of this record.
I
and
completely
think
agree.
It's cool because in this last stretch, I think things get a little kind of maybe not darker, but definitely kind of vibey.
I mean, moodier for sure. Moodier
Yeah.
for sure. Latin Simone is like a welcome to the new section of this record, and it's definitely. I would even say darker. I would.
Yeah.
Starshine. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's a good leaping off point for this one because it is kind of like the moodiest track on this record.
It
for
is.
sure, I think. Yeah.
And I would even use the same word that I use to describe punk and call it a little bit slight, but I like the song more than I like punk.
I think this one's really cool. It's very dreamy. It's very mesmerizing. More like late night Jamaican roof vibes.
Absolutely. It's like the most like dub dance hall moment on the record for sure.
Yeah, Damon really wearing his reggae influence on his sleeve.
Yeah, some people think that he's an ECM artist.
Have you heard the Phil Life Cypher version of this?
Yes, but not for a very long time. I should have before I listened to this.
I revisited it. I revisited it right before we did this. I feel like maybe we shouldn't talk about it if we're trying to still get somebody from this group on our podcast.
Well,
but I just I do not think it works.
Look, we took a shit on Phil Life Cypher last week, and I went back and listened to the sounder, and a little bit unfairly, because I think they're actually really good on the sounder.
The sounder goes off. That's like maybe one of the best Gorillaz B-sides.
Yeah, I think that was their best moment,
Yeah, I mean, no hate to Philly Cypher, because honestly, their performance on their version is actually really good.
It's
The
just
problem is
lyrics. There's some weird lyrics.
It's not even their lyrics. This is not a hip-hop beat.
Oh, yeah, well, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does them no service at all, and I can see why it kind of just made it onto the record as this kind of vibey, near instrumental.
Right. Slow country.
my second favorite song on the album.
I think that the song is totally lovely, and I know that there's a constituency of people who find the song obnoxious.
Really?
Yeah.
I cannot believe that. I think it is so pleasant. I think everything about the band just clicks on this track.
What a cool,
It's
like a mix of bitter and sweet, you know? Like, even
Yeah.
the melody keeps kind of almost dipping its toe into like a minor key, but then coming back and being very chromatic and poppy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the kind of end with the with Damon's wordless vocal that he just kind of does a little vamp on for the last, like,
Oh,
30
that's a
seconds or
great ad
something.
lib. That's a great ad lib.
It's so nice. It is the brightest part of this record.
And I also think we should point out that the specials are sampled on this song in a big way. Like that, the beat and the sort of waving wind come from a special song called Ghost
Yeah,
Town.
that kind of hypnotic white noise sound. I'm really glad that it is the second to last track on this album. It's such a kind of nice note to have before M1A1 kind of takes us out. I've always seen this as like the proper closer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's almost like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, so they gave us like a cathartic, sweaty closer and like a down-tempo, sweet goodbye, kiss goodbye kind of a closer.
And there's also something cathartic about this one, especially following Latin Simone and Starshine, two of the moodier tracks. This one is also moody, but it's a completely different, it's a complete flip side from those last two songs.
Yeah, I agree. M1A1.
I don't like this one.
I know we're about to go head to head because this is top 3 for me on this record.
That's absurd for me.
I don't know, man. I know that all of its tricks are really cheap, but there's something about the fact that the song is divided halfway between the build and the explosion. There's something about the pub rocky la 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 hey double track Damon vocals, and also the fact that it builds up the zombie motif that was so important to the band on that first run of tracks. I fucking like the song, dude. I still like the song.
I have no problem with Damon's like cheap tricks. I mean, this is a guy who's used like a gospel choir to invoke a sense of like epic emotion more times than anybody should be able to.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. I think the zombie intro is kind of cool. It goes on way longer than it should.
I never skip that intro. I love it.
As soon as the song Improper starts, I don't know, you kind of lose me. It is just so...
Oh, I fucking love that ascending, super fast-picked guitar thing. I fucking love it, dude.
Something I've always really enjoyed about the Gorillaz project that I don't think is discussed enough is how impressionistic the lyrics are. Like, I feel like Damon isn't really saying a lot on many of the Gorillaz songs, but
right, they're kind of like he's writing from his id, like in a very
yes, that is a perfect
instinctual
description of
way.
it. And there's something that I really connect with about that kind of lyric writing. This song kind of sticks out from that.
Well, it does
And-
name check the band.
Which I hate.
How do you feel about when Dell name checked Russell?
I think that's okay. I just do not like hearing Damon say, Gorillaz say want some.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to put up a real argument against that. It's not a great moment on this song.
Gorillaz with the beat, y'all. Gorillaz with the beat, y'all. Like, nah.
I don't have any good counterpoints to make against what you're saying right now.
I do kind of like the Space Monkeys rework,
Oh yeah, that is a pretty good one.
but it's still bad.
I don't know. That's just I know I can accept that this song is not high art, but it works for me. It still works
Yeah.
for me. Yeah. All told, I'm not gonna say where I put this album in my ranking of the albums because I want to kind of like couch that for down the road.
Definitely, yeah. We'll do some power rankings at some point.
We will, but all told, I really feel like this album remains pretty essential if you're gonna get into this project.
It is. I maintain the purest Gorillaz album.
Yeah, for sure. There's less of Damon Albarn is less of a character on this album than he is on any of the future ones.
Yeah, it's less Damon Albarn's experimental pop project and more for cartoon characters.
Which makes a lot of sense, dude. It makes a lot of sense. I feel like Damon Albarn was sick of being Damon Albarn at this point. Like, he was sick of fucking seeing his dumb mug on the front of the tabloids. And
who wouldn't be?
It seemed like probably a comforting way to retreat from that, to be like, I'm not myself anymore. I'm this other thing, you know?
It makes a lot of sense.
Trevor, this was great. I don't know how to convince you that I'm not a fucking stooge for loving M1A1.
I'm sure I'll have some kind of dumb opinion on Demon Days.
It's possible.
Yeah, but we'll get to that next time.
Yes, and until then, if you want to reach out to us and share your thoughts about this record or anything else Gorillaz related, you can hit us up on Twitter at Gorillaz Fancast. We now have a Tumblr. You can hit us up there at hallelujahmonkeys.tumblr.com. Email us hallelujahmonkeys@gmail.com, or like us on Facebook.com/hallelujahmonkeys. And hey, if you are listening to this on iTunes, if this is not your first podcast, then this is also not the first time you've heard this, but it's really helpful to get people to write reviews of the show.
I also like reading them.
Also, yeah, it does stroke our egos, but it helps. It helps the show as far as like search result placement and things like
Visibility.
that. Yeah, so if you want to leave us your comments and thoughts, we'll accept bad ratings too. We don't care. If you want to,
like I said, I love to fight online.
It's true. Yeah, you can. We'll just click no. This review was not helpful and move on. Trevor, I think that handles it. I don't have any. I'm all Gorillazed out. I have nothing else to say about this band this week.
Yeah, so next week we'll get to Demon Days, though. I'm excited for that.
Me too. Until next time, I'm Dylan Flynn.
I'm Trevor Ickrath. We still don't have an official sign-off thing, do we?
Well, you know what? We'll just see you next week when we'll have done our due diligence and thought of a way to end this show.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you wanna send some feedback, why don't you suggest something that we could say that'll sound cool at the end of this podcast?
Oh yeah, we'll totally co-opt you being cooler than us.
Let's crowdsource. Yeah, let's crowdsource our sign-off.
Absolutely. Okay, That's it. Goodbye.
All right, see ya.